welcome to our new series, Ask a Leading Woman. My name is Teresa Kittredge, and I'm the founder of 100 Row Women. And I live in Marcel, Minnesota, in northern Minnesota, about Itasca County, about 90 miles south of the Canadian border. And just really excited that folks can join us this morning. I know we have a couple people who are still going to be joining, but we want to make good use of everybody's time and on this beautiful Friday morning. And a little bit about our new series. We have been in the process of conducting 100 meetings across the state, and we're in our second 50. So what we ended up doing was taking that first 50, really listen to women about what's important to you, what can help you sustain, what can help you learn, what can help you connect. So that's where Ask a Leading Woman really generated from. People wanted to learn, mentorship's a big thing, but how do we learn about each other's stories? And of course, my goal in life is we all need to see a path to leadership. And sometimes that path's not straight. Sometimes there's a lot of curves. And so we're really excited to have Rita with us this morning. And this whole series is going to be a good mix of people from cross sector, racially, culturally, different ages and different approaches to life. So we're just excited, and they've been more intimate groups and we love it. And just glad you could join us today. And I was going to do a big intro on Rita, but the whole goal today is for Rita to tell her story. So I'm going to hand it over to Rita Albrecht and just thank you, Rita, for joining us today. And thanks for being willing to share your story and tell folks about your leadership journey. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, Rita.
Thanks, Teresa, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I appreciate the invitation to talk with you a little bit about my experience as a community leader, and I hope that you'll learn something. I'm open to all questions, so I'm going to make sure we save time for that. So if you have questions along the way, just write them down, and I think there'll be time for that. I grew up in northern Minnesota, and actually in Big Falls, where Heidi Watson is from. And my dad was elementary school principal. My mom worked as an administrative assistant at Boise Cascade, and just really enjoyed a good life in Cooch County. I went away to school. I went to Bemidji. Well, I went to Northwest Tech. No, I went to Brainerd Vocational Technical School at that time, and then I went to BSU. I started there and I was in the program for 3 years, and then I quit before I graduated, and I got married to my husband, Mike, and we had children. I have a son and a daughter. They're both married, and I have 5 grandchildren. By the way, I've been doing grandma daycare for 3 weeks. Today's my last day of grandma daycare. The kids are here in Bemidji with me, but I've been in Minneapolis 2 weeks because teachers were on strike. My daughter lives in Minneapolis, but they've settled. And so we're going to hand off the kids this afternoon. So the last 3 weeks I've been doing grandma daycare. My son lives over by Moorhead, and he has two daughters. So we have 5 grandkids, but I got married, and Mike and I owned a business. We owned an A&W restaurant here for about 11 years. And when we sold our restaurant, I said, I have to go back to school. So I say I'm a late bloomer. My daughter says, oh, it just took you a while for you to find your dream job. And I graduated BSU with degrees in geography and community planning and a social studies degree. And so I was a licensed teacher and did some long-term subbing for a couple of schools around this area for a while. But I realized right away that my forte was not in the classroom. It was more as a community planner. So my first job as a planner was assistant planner for the city of Bemidji, and that was like administering the zoning code, zoning applications, making sure things were built where they were supposed to be and how they were supposed to be and that kind of thing. And then I went to Headwaters Regional Development Commission, and that's a 5-county development commission that provides planning and economic development services for 5 counties. And I was a development specialist for them. Then I came back to the city of Bemidji as community development director for a short time. And then the next job I had was with Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. I was a tribal planner for them for 3 years. And finally, I worked for the state of Minnesota as a regional planner. and I retired in 2019. I had been appointed in 2016 by then DNR Commissioner Tom Landwehr as the Northwest Region Director in Northwest Minnesota. And that job was 23 counties of Northwest Minnesota. And really that was sort of like constituent services. If somebody had a problem with DNR rules or issues or staff, they usually called the regional director, and I had to try and figure out a way to make our constituent happy, as well as protect our natural resources. So it was very interesting. I grew up in Cooch County, which is sort of the center of logging in this north central area. And so I understood forestry a lot, but I learned a lot in the valley, Red River Valley, about water projects. The diversion project in Fargo-Moorhead was going on at that time. And I, helped facilitate watershed management boards and a meetings between Governor Dayton and Governor Burgum of North Dakota at that time to try and figure out how could we come to agreement on the diversion project and how that was going to work. So had a lot of great experience working for the Department of Natural Resources. Also talking about deer permit areas and how many deer per square mile. And it was just a very broad, challenging job, but mostly it was about working with elected officials and trying to figure out how to keep them and the DNR working toward the same goal, which is protect natural resources. So I retired in 2019 from that job, and along the way I ran for office. So back about the time before I got elected, before I went to work for Leech Lake Band, I ran for city council, and I was elected, and it's a 4-year term. And so midterm, after 2 years, I was compelled to run for mayor because I just felt like the mayor at the time was not showing the leadership we needed in Bemidji. And I felt like I had some skills to be a community leader in that way. As a planner, as you may know, if you've ever worked with a community planning organization, we usually have to figure out a way to help people get what they want and figure out a way for them to work within the rules. And so there's a lot of consensus building and that kind of thing. And so I had that skill set, a lot of practice with that in my planning jobs. And I thought that would be helpful on our council at the time. It didn't feel like they were working very much as a team. And for me, the mayor's role really was to build a team and figure out how to a certain extent, be a Pied Piper and say, okay, I know where we're going out there, come on with me, and get us all focused on the same direction and that goal, to improve our community and do it within the resources that we had and respect our property taxpayers, because they're the ones footing the bill. And so I ran for mayor. I ran midterm. So if I had lost, I wouldn't have lost my council seat, but I won. We had a male mayor at that time, and I beat him. And then I was reelected 3 more times. So I had 8 years as mayor of Bemidji, 2-year terms. And just as a side note, every year a male ran against me, and they ran hard, and they spent a lot of money, more money than I spent. But I was a pretty savvy campaigner, so. And people appreciated the fact that our council was working well together. We seemed to be moving the city in the right direction. A lot of positive things were happening. So I was lucky to be reelected. And so I served as mayor I was elected first as mayor in 2012, and I retired as mayor in 2020. And the reason I retired as mayor is because I chose to run for state senate. In part, I felt like it was time to pass the torch on. I thought 8 years was probably long enough to be mayor, and so I filed to run for state senate in 2020, and I was beaten soundly. And there were a number of reasons for that, but it was really a learning experience for me, because my my campaigns for mayor had always been positive, never negative. I never went negative. My opponents never went negative. We just tried to, campaign on our own merits. The Senate race was different. There was a lot of probably, I would say $500,000, $500,000 spent against me, not by the candidate I ran against, but by outside groups that put out just hit pieces on me. And it was like 24/7 YouTube ads saying, bad, negative, false things about me. And so there was a lot of money spent against me. A candidate in a Senate race can only spend about $120,000. So I was outspent, 4-1 pretty much. And so that was tough. But I think the most disappointing thing about that Senate race for me, not that I lost, because actually I think I kind of dodged a bullet. It's so messy at the legislature. I'm not sure I'd want to be down there right now trying to make laws. But the fact that they attacked my integrity and my reputation, that was the most disappointing thing to me, and the thing that really made me feel, that it was just unfair. And I don't know, honestly, they did that to every candidate that election cycle. But I felt like as a woman, I maybe was a bigger target for them, because they could say I was soft on crime, I didn't want to fund the police, that kind of thing. And of course, that's not true, because if they looked at my record, or if anyone looked at my record as mayor, I was very supportive of funding our police, and had every single budget year increased police budget and tried to increase the number of officers on the street. So it was just like made up stuff that it felt bad to me. And I think maybe it's just me, but women in general perhaps are not as willing to go negative. So we didn't go negative with our campaign, and that probably was part of the reason that we lost, because negative campaigns work. But enough of that about that. I wanted to just share that how is it that I came to be a leader. I wanted to share that there's a number of things that I think helped me along the way. Number one, when I was when I was a homemaker, home with my 2 kids, and I knew that I hadn't finished my college degree, in my head, I thought I wasn't really smart enough to be an elected official, or I wasn't smart enough to lead the PTA, or, whatever. And I found out that's just not true. So I started to, I hadn't finished my degree. I hadn't gone back to school yet. And, but what I did do was I began getting engaged in my community in volunteering ways, including the PTA, but also, being on the Community Ed Advisory Council and supporting the United Way efforts. I was really active in my church. That was a good learning experience. And just a lot of networking along the way was one of the ways that I started to build my capacity to be a leader. And I didn't know at that time that I was going to even run for elected office. But I was just trying to increase my skill set. So for example, I mentioned I was active in my church as a women leader. And I mean, I think I've done 100 turkey dinners or more, but and bazaars and whatnot, and taught Sunday school and sat on all the committees. But one thing that really flummoxed me at church was to stand up in front of people and be a reader. It just made me completely fall apart. My voice was shaky. I was all of the classic signs of not wanting to be a public speaker. And so I thought, I gotta learn to get this in control. And Community Ed had a night class in the winter. We had a seasonal restaurant business. It was an A&W. We were open March 1st through September. So in the winter, I had time off, and so Community Ed had a class called Public Speaking the Toastmaster Way. And I thought, maybe I could take a community ed class and I could learn how to feel comfortable in front of people speaking. Because, in high school, elementary school, high school, I was shy. I was an introvert. I never tried out for the play. I was afraid to, do a speech. So I wanted to learn how to be more comfortable. In the community ed flyer said, you can learn to be a public speaker, And so I thought, oh, I'm going to take this class. So it was, I think it was 6 or 8 sessions every week. We had to write a speech, and we used a book called Public Speaking the Toastmaster Way. And the Toastmaster's first speech, there's 10 speeches, and the first one is the icebreaker, which is basically just introducing yourself and telling about yourself, because that's the easiest thing for anyone to do, because that's what you know best, right? And so I worked through that community ed class, and then the teacher who belonged to the local Toastmaster club said, you should join Toastmasters. And so I did join Toastmasters. They met over the noon hour, and I could manage to get away for 1 hour and go to Toastmaster meetings and practice speechcraft. And that is a very welcoming and they're just very kind, supportive group to help you understand how to be better at being a speech maker. And just if you want to be a reader in church, or you want to lead the PTA and you need to know how to run a meeting or something, they're just a great organization for all of that. So that was just one example of some of the skill set that I think women feel, okay, I need to fill in this gap before I can do this. I need to learn how to do this before I can do that. And that's what I did. I just started to find opportunities where I felt I needed to fill in the gaps. So the other thing I would say is networking. So get engaged in your volunteer, fill those gaps of what you think might be your skill set needs, but network with everyone you meet. And so that's all about community engagement and seeing how connections are made and who's connected to who and how you might work with that person. Oh, you're working on that. Hey, did you know that this is something that you could be involved in? The other thing is, and I think in small towns, that's just an automatic. Everybody is doing that and working together. But the other thing that I think is really important is to find a mentor. And I had a friend who I worked with at Bemidji State University at one time, and she was not only a mentor because she's like the smartest woman I know, so she could be an advisor if I had a dilemma. She was really good advisor in helping me to search through that dilemma. If something was bad, if I felt in the dumps, she was a shoulder to cry on. She would always lift me up. She was my cheerleader. She said, you should apply for that job. You can get that job. You should do that. So that was really important for me, is to have a mentor. And the other thing I would say is maybe consider a life coach. Believe it or not, I just had a life coach coaching time for like 6 months last fall. And maybe you don't think that someone who's been a leader needs a life coach. I have to apologize. I remember I said I was grandma daycare. Well, the toddler had a cold, and so grandma got the cold. So I might have to cough or something. But a life coach. I chose to hire a life coach for 6 months last fall because even though I'm retired, I've had this public service career and professional career. There was a time in my life, I am retired. I don't have that public service career anymore. What's the next step for me? So I hired a life coach for 6 months to help me organize my thoughts, think about what's important to me. What is it that I want to be doing going forward? How do I want to help others? And so I found it to be very rewarding. I think it's worth the investment for someone who's really struggling to figure out what maybe their next step is. Maybe they want to know, should I change my career? Should I quit my job and go back to school? Should I, should I change my jobs? Whatever. It helps you focus your intentions a bit. And I would advise that for anyone. Just finally, I would say read books. I read a lot of books about women leaders, lover or hater. Sheryl Sanders wrote the book Lean In, and at the time it came out, it was a good book for me to read. Do things like Toastmasters and other learning experiences. I also did a Northwest Minnesota Foundation here is an McKnight Foundation. I did training with them, 2 different leadership trainings, which were residential. So you went for a week and did those. I also did a residential training with Blandon Foundation. So apply to those, pick up on all of those kinds of free or low cost experiential training opportunities that you can, because those are really, I found a lot of value in them, and they helped me understand that I did have the skill set to be a leader. Public service is difficult, you know, it's worth every effort. I would say it's very rewarding. And I think for women, it tends to be perhaps a bit more challenging for a number of reasons. You all know those reasons. I don't even have to share them, but you know, women just have to work harder to be recognized and to be appreciated and respected. And we often, you know, I like to say men can fail up. They can fail at one thing and try another thing and they get advanced on it, you know, even though it doesn't seem like they deserve to have it. When a woman really has earned a spot and never really gets to that spot. So keep on working and network with other women, because I think we're as supportive as we can be to one another. It's important to have women in leadership positions, and you all know why, but I'll just share again why I think it is. And that's because women have a different way of leading and governing. We tend to be consensus builders. We tend to be relational, and we tend to want to try and work things out. And often it's because we've been a mom. You know, we've tried to, what do we say to kids? We say, work it out, right? You know, figure it out. And so I think that's why it's important for women leaders to be in positions that are important. I think I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions.